Welcome to part 4 of our unit on the American Revolution. Last time we talked about the differences between the British and the Americans. This time we're looking at the end of the war. What were the major battles and what was the outcome? So strike up the band, find us a clown. We're going to go on a parade of learning. All right, last video of this unit talking about some major battles and how the war ended. We could talk about dozens and dozens of battles, and they would all be important to the outcome of the war, but instead I picked just 3 battles that I see as important because they caused major changes to the direction of the war. Let's start with the Battle of Trenton. To understand the importance of this battle, you need to know that before it occurred, it looked like the revolution wouldn't even last a full year. Washington had just faced a major defeat and lost control of New York. It was almost Christmas, and almost all the soldiers in the American army had served long enough to go home on New Year's. If the army left, Britain would win, as there would be no Americans left to fight. Washington knew he had to do something bold to have any chance of fighting after January. Washington decided it would be a sneak attack the day after Christmas on a Hessian outpost in Trenton, New Jersey. The difficult part, of course, was getting there. To get his army there, he would have to cross the ice-choked Delaware River, march his soldiers for miles in the snow, and then still be able to fight when they got there. To get across the river undetected, they had to cross at night, with oars wrapped in cloth to muffle the sound. As the soldiers marched, it was easy to see where they had been by the blood in the snow from the soldiers' bloody feet marching with just rags for shoes. As they got close, Washington was informed that the gunpowder was wet, and the guns may not fire. His reply was that they would use the bayonet if they must, and that he was resolved to take Trenton. The Hessians, like the British, had little respect for the American army, and were not ready when they arrived. Washington's army attacked in the morning of December 26, 1776, and took the town without losing a single soldier during the attack. The victory at Trenton revitalized American spirit, increased enlistments, and ensured America would continue to fight for its freedom. The second important battle will be the Battle of Saratoga. The hero of the Battle of Saratoga was actually Benedict Arnold, who would become the most famous American traitor of all time when he turned coat and joined the British. The Battle of Saratoga was important for 2 reasons. First of all, it would end the British tactical plan of cutting off the New England colonies from the middle and southern colonies, since they were the most belligerent and where the war was really started. And most importantly, it would be a major victory that would convince the French to join the Americans as their allies. Once the French joined the cause, suddenly America had a navy to counter the power of the British on the open sea. This navy would be helpful in the final Battle of Yorktown. But before we get there, what about the Valley Forge thing? Well, Valley Forge was the winter camp that Washington set up in the winter of 1777 to 1778. The location was chosen because of its proximity to Philadelphia, which allowed Washington to keep an eye on the British throughout the winter. However, the location had no shelter, food was scarce, and the weather was below freezing throughout the winter. This caused many hardships over the winter, with, in fact, over 2,500 soldiers dying from starvation, disease, and exposure to the cold. When you think about a barren landscape with soldiers dying daily, it seems like a place that people would want to leave if they could. And some did. But the impressive thing about Washington's leadership and the commitment of the soldiers is that the vast majority of soldiers who could have left didn't. They chose to stay and prepare for war. After erecting hastily built cabins, and with the help of foreigners like Frederick von Steuben and Marquis de Lafayette, the army learned how to march and follow commands and became faster at reloading their weapons than the average British soldier. In the following spring and summer, with a disciplined and well-trained army, Washington now had an army he could go toe-to-toe with the British with, without running away, and actually win the war. Now, back to Yorktown. Yorktown was the final battle of the war, which occurred when British General Cornwallis was cornered in Yorktown, Virginia. Now, Virginia is a long ways away from the New England colonies where the war started, and most of the war happened. You see, after the plan failed to cut off New England from the southern colonies, Britain decided to try and take over the South and recruit loyalists to fight for Britain. But instead of easy victories in the South, they ran into southern militias led by leaders like Francis Marion, aka the Swamp Fox, who got his nickname by surprise attacking the British and then escaping into the swamps. He attacked soft targets like supply lines or small outposts that made it difficult for the British to keep their troops fed and supplied. British General Lord Cornwallis was in charge of the southern plan and was having little success in the Carolinas. He decided to take his army to Virginia, and after hearing that Washington was on his way south, decided to go to Yorktown to prepare for the battle. Yorktown was chosen because of its access to the ocean, so that Cornwallis could get reinforcements and supplies by sea. What Cornwallis didn't know was that Washington wasn't just bringing his army, he also had a large French army to help him fight. Also, Cornwallis was unaware that the French had sent ships to cut off the British Navy from helping him with reinforcements. Outnumbered and without relief coming by sea, Cornwallis hunkered down and Washington laid siege to Yorktown. A siege is when an army surrounds a location and bombards it with artillery to get the people inside to surrender. Cornwallis was under siege for 3 weeks before finally sending up the drummer to announce surrender. After Cornwallis surrendered, the British felt there was no way to continue the fight in America. On September 3rd, 1783, the British and Americans signed the Treaty of Paris in France. The treaty gave America their freedom and independence, as well as expanded its borders to the Mississippi, north to Canada, and south to the northern border of Florida. So what? Well, if you can answer the following questions, then you've learned what you needed to know. Why were the battles of Saratoga and Trenton important? What happened at Valley Forge, and why was it significant? Finally, what events led to the end of the war, and what was the outcome for the U.S.? Well, there you have it. That's the end of our unit on the Revolutionary War. Hope you learned a lot.